Hello, friends, and welcome to episode number 6 in our Unsolved National Park Disappearances series, where we present 10 more cases for you to ponder. In the United States National Park System alone, there are more than 84 million acres of preserved woods, deserts, mountains, and other wilderness. So it's no surprise that in the past 100 years, there have been a number of cases of reported missing persons. But what's most disturbing is these numbers are increasing at an alarming rate, and the circumstances behind these disappearances can sometimes be beyond bizarre. Today we'll discuss 10 more unsolved national park disappearances here in episode 6. Please note that some of the cases have very limited information available. Sit back, relax, and let's begin. Number 10. Michael Haron. 51-year-old Michael was last seen on August 23, 2008. Michael lived in Maryville, Tennessee at the end of Bell Branch Road in Happy Valley. Michael was a contractor with 2 sons in their early 20s. His parents lived in an adjacent property and enjoyed living in the Smoky Mountains National Park. Michael's parents lived on the northern edge of the park, and Michael liked to head over to their property to mow the lawn. That was exactly what Michael's intentions were the day he went missing. Michael's truck with a trailered mower in the back was parked at the end of his driveway, as he was prone to do. Before heading over, Michael emptied his pockets of his keys, money clip, wallet, cell phone, and his gun, which he left on the counter. Michael then walked out to the garage and hopped on the ATV, driving back up his street. Chilhowie Lake was less than 3 miles from his house, with a large meadow adjacent to his property. A large river twisted through the landscape less than 3/4 of a mile to the south. Michael never made it to mow his parents' lawn. His truck was found in the driveway with the mower still on the trailer. His personal property lay on the counter where he left it undisturbed. His parents waited, hoping he would come back, but after a day passed with no Michael, his parents called his 2 sons, who responded immediately. His 2 sons contacted law enforcement. The sheriff's deputies located the Yamaha Wolverine ATV 1 mile from Michael's residence near Adams Creek. The ATV was found to have been shut off using the kill switch, something his 2 sons said he would never do. The ATV was found less than 3/4 of a mile from the Great Smoky Mountains National Park's northern border. After an extensive search by the sheriff's department using canines, ground teams, helicopters, and searchers on horseback, nothing was found. The Blount County Sheriff's Department said they did not believe any foul play was involved in his disappearance, although Michael was never seen again. Number 9. Joe Clly. 73-year-old Joe Clly was reported missing July 13, 2018. Joe, a U.S. Navy veteran, was born in Lansing, Michigan. He was married with 5 children. After studying electrical design, he moved the family to Roscommon, Michigan. Roscommon Lake lies about 120 miles south of Tahquamenon State Park. Joe had an engineering services company that he operated successfully for 25 years. Joe and his wife Lorraine spent their winters in Panama, Florida, and would go north to the Higgins Lake area on the lower peninsula of Michigan. The family owned a 2-room log cabin built in the 1920s, located near the Whitefish Township on the northern bank of the Tahquamenon River. The cabin was without running water or electricity. They got their water from a local spring near the cabin. Joe loved the cabin, but his wife didn't share his appreciation for the rustic nature of the home. Lorraine would head to the cabin on weekends while Joe would spend weeks there. Joe drove a 1992 silver Oldsmobile Silhouette van that he parked on the north side of the Tahquamenon Trail in the state park the day he went missing. His dog, a 9-year-old Springer Chow Mix, accompanied him on that fateful day. Family members say Joe's dog Chip would never leave his side and was a loyal companion. After parking his van, he opened the door and let Chip out as they started the 1-mile hike to his cabin. Joe called his wife every morning at 9 a.m. and every night at 9 p.m. to stay in touch and report that all was good. That day, Joe and Chip went on their usual hike and made it back to the van. It was at this point that both the man and his dog disappeared. Law enforcement found Joe's keys in the unlocked van, something his family says he would never do. The search for Joe Clly was the largest in Michigan's history. The search included the Sheriff's Search and Rescue Team, K-9 units, the Michigan State Police, and BIA officers, along with a large contingency of volunteers. The search area covered 10,000 acres, and although it was officially suspended after 4 days, volunteers continued to search for weeks. Oddly enough, less than a month later, the family dog Chip was found sitting at the front door of the cabin. A bit thinner, but otherwise in good health. The dog did not look as though it had been in the forest for several weeks, and Chip didn't bark for 3 days after his return to the cabin, something very unlike the dog's normal behavior. Joe was the second person within 4 years to have disappeared from this region. He was never seen again. Number 8. Larry Davenport. 20-year-old Larry Davenport disappeared on July 17th of 1983 in the Roan Mountain State Park in North Carolina. Larry was on a camping trip with friends. The Roan Mountains straddle North Carolina and Tennessee and are part of the same mountain range as the Great Smoky Mountains. Larry was seated at a wooden table with friends when he got up and headed into the woods. His friends assumed he was going into the woods to relieve himself. Larry never returned. His friends called in the park rangers, and for 3 days searchers looked for Larry, but found no evidence of where he could have gone. 3 days later, and 8 miles from the campsite, Larry was found naked and hallucinating. He had no idea what happened and had a curtain wrapped around his shoulder that he said he had gotten from an abandoned cabin. He was incoherent and had scratches over his entire body. Hundreds of searchers had failed to find Larry, and he had no recollection of what had happened to him. He was later transported to a hospital and treated for acute brain syndrome. Larry was the second individual this had happened to in the same park in a 2-week time span. Both males, both found naked and hallucinating. Number 7. Charles Mcculler. In 1974, 19-year-old Charles, or Chuck, Mcculler left his home state of Virginia for an extended photography and hiking trip. Charles was a keen photographer, and he was planning to visit all the national parks to take photographs, but was inexperienced in the wilderness and was said to be very ill-prepared. It seems that he had planned to hike to Crater Lake along the North Road. A heavy snowfall during the previous 2 weeks dropped over 5 feet of fresh snow on the area. Cross-country skiers reported that at the time the snow was so soft and powdery that even with skis they were sinking up to their waists. Charles had told his friend that if they did not hear from him by February 1st, to call and report him missing. When Charles failed to call his friends, they filed a missing person report. Immediately, an extensive air and ground search of the northern section of the park was started, but no clues as to Charles' disappearance were uncovered. A year later, 2 hikers from Texas took a wrong turn and ended up in a remote canyon when they stumbled upon an old, dirty, ripped backpack in a place called Bybee Creek. The hikers called in the park rangers, and one of the seasonal rangers remembered the description of Charles' backpack. So another search took place in the area where the backpack was found, and the very next day, Charles' remains were located. The skeletal remains were described as bizarre. There were foot bones in the socks, but Charles' jeans were empty except for the broken off ends of his shin bones sticking up. Strangely, the jeans were unbuttoned and the belt buckle left undone. The rest of him was simply gone, as if he had just melted away. The official cause of death was determined to be natural causes. Number 6. Michael Malinoski. 37-year-old Michael Malinoski was last seen on October 24, 1996, in the Gaines, Pennsylvania area. The area is very close to Pine Creek Gorge, which is known as Pennsylvania's Grand Canyon. Michael was attending a psychology conference at the time of his disappearance. Michael was a clinical psychologist with an ex-wife and son who both lived in San Francisco. Michael was staying at a lodge near Gaines, Pennsylvania, and had stayed there in the past, so he was familiar with the area. The lodge was surrounded by state and federal land and was originally built back in the 1930s. Michael checked into the lodge, turned on the heater, and settled in for the night. He was scheduled to stay a second night, but never showed up. After a cleaning person noticed he'd left all his belongings in the room and the bed wasn't made, they called the police. Michael's 1995 Nissan Sentra was found parked at the head of a trail on November 2nd. The trail was an access point to the Barber Rock overlook of the Pine Creek Gorge. Along with a box of half-eaten snacks, a pair of hiking boots were found on the floor of the Nissan. His cell phone was in a backpack on the seat, but he was nowhere to be found. Tioga County law enforcement immediately began a search using volunteers, search and rescue team, helicopters, and canines. However, no evidence was found. The search for Michael was the largest and most expensive in the history of Tioga County. There was never any activity on any of Michael's credit cards or his social security number following his disappearance, and his son says he was never heard from again. Number 5, Triny Gibson. Triny Gibson was 16 years old when she disappeared from the Great Smoky Mountains National Park on October 8, 1976. A group of students from Bearden High School set out for a hike in the national park. There were 40 students in all, and they were hiking the Appalachian Trail from Andrews Bald to Clingman's Dome. Triny Gibson was part of the group of students taking the hike. Triny had been hiking with different groups throughout the day, chatting with one group before moving on to the next as they made their way along the route. At around 3 p.m., Triny was with a group that was positioned about a half mile from the Clingman's Dome parking area. It was around this time that Triny disappeared. The area where she was last seen was on an established trail with an expanse of dense forest lying to the sides. There would be no reason to step off the trail into this hazardous area. The weather for that evening of October 8, 1976 produced strong winds and heavy rain, while temperatures dropped into the 30s. By all descriptions, Triny was athletic, very responsible, and not the type to run away. One of the people on the trip described being about 200 feet from Triny when she saw her lean over to look at something on the side of the trail and then disappeared to the right of the trail. A student that was hiking with Triny when she disappeared described how she was on the trail when I last saw her. I checked the area where Triny was last seen. No trail leading off, very rough, small stream, brush and trees. Yelled but no answer. The National Park Service and law enforcement followed up on every conceivable angle. Triny was never seen again. On one of my live streams on this channel, I had a guest, Laura Rist, who's considered by many to be the expert on the Triny Gibson disappearance. If you'd like more information, have a look for that live stream on the channel. It's worth a listen. Number 4, Carol Vanhulla. 3-year-old Carol Vanhulla went missing on June 28, 1959, in the Dickinson County picnic grounds in Michigan. The Vanhullas had 4 daughters and took them to the Dickinson County picnic grounds at Norway Lake for an afternoon of outdoor fun. Carol's mother was readying the group for dinner when she noticed Carol was missing. After a quick search, law enforcement was notified. A large-scale search was conducted using 500 searchers, a helicopter, and canines. Although the canines picked up on her scent, they would then lose it. About 13 hours into the search and rescue team could hear a faint cry from a child. In an area heavily laden with swamp and underbrush, authorities found Carol. The previous September, a 4-year-old boy had vanished under similar circumstances, but he was found dead of exposure 4 days after he went missing. Carol was taken to a hospital with scratches and signs of exposure. Number 3, Elsie Davis. 24-year-old Elsie Davis disappeared from How Hill, Maine, in July of 1911. Elsie was an organist at a church in Bethel, Maine, when she went missing on Sunday, July 30th, 1911. Elsie had played for the morning services at the church and then headed home in How Hill. Around noon that Sunday, Elsie disappeared. Initially, her parents thought she may have walked into the woods behind their house. A search ensued. Over 800 people volunteered in the search. Desperate to find their daughter after 3 days of searching, the Davises received a handwritten note from a psychic who stated that Elsie would be found, but that she would be in a tree and that searchers needed to look up. On the afternoon of the 5th day of the search, searchers combed through very rugged terrain 3 miles into the woods. They found personal belongings of Elsie scattered around the area. After hearing a noise, they looked up and found Elsie about 20 feet up in a tree with little clothing. Elsie was brought down and seemed incoherent. She had no recollection of what happened after she left the church. Through all the questioning, law enforcement was unable to get any information as to how she survived the 5 days in the woods. She had no memories of what happened. Number 2, John Long. John Long was 58 when he went missing in Ely, Minnesota on April 10, 1963. John was a logger and had been working at the Tamara Timber Company near Echo Trail. John left that day to go on a hike along the Moose River to watch spawning fish. For protection, John had brought along his .22 caliber rifle. He never returned, so his fellow workers went to search for him. After coming up empty-handed, the workers notified the local law enforcement. A 4-day search was organized by the Sheriff's Department using planes and search teams on foot, but John was never located. Number 1, Milda McQuillan. Milda McQuillan was 72 years old at the time of her disappearance. Milda vanished while driving her pea green 2-door 1968 Dodge on East Bad Medicine Lake Road on the outskirts of Ponsford, Minnesota. Recent rain had made the unpaved roads muddy, and a few miles into the 18-mile trip, McQuillan's car stalled. The postal carrier she knew helped her get it started again. Later on in the trip, just a mile from her friend's home, she made a wrong turn and asked a truck driver for directions. She never arrived at her friend's house, and that truck driver was the last person to have seen Milda. Milda was reported missing 2 days later by her friends. Search and rescue efforts were immediately deployed. Then, 3 days later, her car was found abandoned, stuck in the mud on an unused logging road, approximately 100 feet off East Bad Medicine Lake Road, 30 miles west of Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. Then, after another 3 days had passed, 52 members of the National Guard were deployed to search the same area and found her scarf and a belt hanging from a bush in plain sight. The area where Milda vanished was in a heavily wooded, swampy area about 20 minutes from Maplewood State Park. Milda has not been seen or heard from since. So there you have it, another 10 unsolved National Park disappearances. As we continue this series, we'll keep you updated on the status of these cases. If you have a case you would like to see featured in this series, please email us at disappearanceof@gmail.com. Until the next episode, take care of yourselves and each other. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'll talk to you next time.